Hello everyone, my name is Jay Cho from Korea International School. Today I'll be presenting my research on the psychology of suffering fans. I want to start with a question. Why do fans keep showing up for a team that keeps letting them down? Think about it. If you went to a restaurant and the food was terrible, you would not go back. That is rational behavior. But football fans do not behave this way, and today I'm going to show you exactly how irrational their behavior is using real data from all 20 Premier League clubs. Let me explain with something everyone understands. A can of Coke costs about $2. If the price suddenly goes up to $10, would you still buy it? Probably not. You would switch to another drink or just drink water. This is the fundamental law of demand. When a product gets worse or more expensive, people buy less of it. This is how rational consumers are supposed to behave. But football fans appear to violate this law systematically. Teams that finish last in the league still fill their stadiums. Clubs that drop from Champions League contention to mid-table mediocrity see almost no change in ticket sales. So the question is this: is this just an anecdotal impression, or is it supported by real data? And if the data confirms it, how extreme is that irrationality? This research argues that it can be explained by the framework of behavioral economics. Before I get into the analysis, let me show you how bad Manchester United's 2023 to 2024 season was. This heat map shows all 38 results. Green is a win, yellow is a draw, and red is a loss. You can see long stretches of red throughout the season. They finished 8th with 60 points, and they were knocked out of the Champions League in the group stage. This was their worst season in over 30 years. The red line is Manchester United's actual points. The green dashed line is the pace needed to be top 4, which is about 70 points. Man United fell behind by match day 7 and never recovered. They finished below even mid-table pace. So the question is this: did fans respond to this decline? The short answer is no. And I'll show you exactly how little they responded. To explain why fans behave this way, I use ideas from a field called behavioral economics. The first concept is the sunk cost fallacy. Have you ever watched a terrible movie to the end just because you already paid for the ticket? That is sunk cost fallacy. You made a decision based on money already spent instead of asking yourself, is the rest of this movie really worth my time? For football fans, the sunk cost is enormous. Years of season tickets, jerseys, childhood memories, emotions, social identities. Walking away would mean admitting all of that was wasted. A 2015 meta-analysis reviewed 98 studies and found this effect appears everywhere. And even studying economics does not make you immune. The second concept is escalation of commitment. Think of a gambler. They lose $500. Instead of shopping, they bet more because quitting means accepting the loss. Each loss makes quitting harder and not easier. The third concept is prospect theory. People judge outcomes relative to what they expected. Manchester United fans expected a top 4 finish based on finishing third in the previous season, 2022 to 2023. Dropping to 8th in 2023 to 2024 should have felt like a huge loss. And I'll test whether it actually changed their behavior. My last concept is demand elasticity. On the left side of this slide, you can see if a coffee shop doubles its prices, customers leave. That is elastic demand. On the right, if insulin doubles in price, diabetics still buy it because they cannot survive without it. That is inelastic demand. So the question is this: are football fans more like coffee drinkers or more like insulin users? My study has 3 objectives. First, quantify the relationship between performance and attendance across all 20 clubs. Second, compute fandom elasticity and compare it against everyday products. And third, compare how investors and fans react to the same poor performance. I collected data for all 20 Premier League clubs in the 2023 to 2024 season from official records and transfer market, plus detailed Manchester United data, including stock price and Google Trends. My key variable is occupancy rate, attendance divided by stadium capacity. I ran 6 different analyses, each approaching the same question from a different angle. Let me show you what I found. But before I show you results, let me explain two terms you'll see repeatedly. R squared tells you what percentage of one thing is explained by another thing. If studying explains 80% of your test score, R squared equals 0.80. If it only explains 5%, R squared equals 0.05. That means studying barely matters. P-value tells you if a result is real or just random chance. If P is below 0.05, the result is real. If P is above 0.05, it might just be luck. With these two tools, you can understand every result in this presentation. Now, this is my most important finding. I tested whether team performance predicts attendance across all 20 clubs. Performance explains only 4.3%. The other 95.7% has nothing to do with how good the team is. That is where sunk cost, identity, and loyalty live. Each dot on this chart is one club. If fans were rational, you would see a clear upward slope. Better teams, higher occupancy. Instead, the dots are scattered randomly around the 90 to 100%. Manchester City won the league with 91 points and had a 97% occupancy. Sheffield United, which finished last with 16 points, had 92% occupancy. A 75-point gap produced only a 5% occupancy gap. I then grouped clubs into four tiers and compared their occupancy. Remember, P needs to be below 0.05 to be significant. Mine is 0.473, which is way above that. The gap between champions and relegated teams is only 1.9 percentage points. They fill their stadiums at essentially the same rate. This bar chart shows all 20 clubs sorted by position. Now notice how all the bars hover at the same height. There's no visible decline from left to right. Whether you win the title or get relegated, roughly the same proportion of fans show up. Now, remember the coffee versus insulin analogy? I calculated elasticity for 17 clubs. The average is 0.011. Insulin, the life-saving drug, has an elasticity of 0.10. Football fandom is 10 times more inelastic than insulin. Fans are 10 times more stubborn than people who need medication to survive. This chart compares football fandom across everyday products. On the left, luxury goods. Very elastic, people stop buying them really easily. Moving to the right, I get to necessities, then addictive goods like cigarettes, and then insulin. Football fandom is at the far right, which is below insulin. Every single club showed inelastic demand with no exceptions. Manchester United is publicly traded on the stock exchange, so I compared how investors reacted versus how fans reacted to the same results during the 2023 to 2024 seasons. The stock price varied 140 times more than attendance. The green line is stock price. It swings dramatically. The blue dots are attendance, which is perfectly flat. It's the same information, it's the same team, it's the same season. Investors responded rationally. They pulled the stock down 40%. Fans responded by showing up in exactly the same numbers. This is the clearest possible evidence that something other than rational evaluation is driving fan behavior. This finding needs no statistics to understand. Across 19 home games, attendance ranged from 73,358 to 73,612. The total variation is 254 seats out of 73,500 people. Win 3-0 or lose 0-3, it's the same crowd. Now, this is the most powerful chart in this study. Each bar is one home match. Green is a win, yellow is a draw, red is a loss. Now look at the bars. They're all the same height. After a 0-3 loss of Manchester City, the next game drew 73,599 people, which is above average. After a 0-3 loss of Bournemouth, the next game drew 73,574 people, which is also above average. The crowd is identical whether the team wins or loses. Now, this is my final analysis. I asked, does it matter whether your team did better or worse than expected? Disappointed teams had 94.6% occupancy. Teams that exceeded expectations had 96.8%. The p-value is 0.469, which is above 0.05, so it's not significant, and therefore there's no real difference. Manchester United dropped from third in 2022 to 2023 to eighth in 2023 to 2024. Their occupancy was 98.2%. The reference point was completely ignored. Now let me bring everything together with just five numbers. 4.3%. Performance barely predicts attendance. 0.011, which is the fandom elasticity, which is lower than insulin. 140 times, which is the gap between investors and fans. 254 seats, the total variation across 19 home games, and 98.2%, which is Manchester United's occupancy despite their worst season in over 30 years. Now, each number is from a different analysis using a different method, which all points to the same conclusion. To conclude, first, performance explains only 4.3% of attendance, with no significant difference between champions and relegated teams. Second, fandom elasticity is lower than insulin, meaning fans treat their club as more essential than life-saving medication. And third, the 140-fold divergence between stock and attendance proves that rational actors and fans respond to the same information in completely different ways. Now, I acknowledge some limitations. It's one season, it's one league, and it's correlation rather than causation. But six different analyses all point to the same conclusion. Behavioral economics, specifically the sunk cost fallacy, is a right framework for understanding why fans keep showing up for teams that keep letting them down. Thank you.